מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 157, let's read about walking through that wilderness at the top. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. It's basically perfect for our congregation. That's exactly what we did, and we'll see about that tonight. 158, we think about all of our journeys across many shores and distances to be here today. Mi chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot osei fele, Nora tehilot osei fele. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, Bokei hayam livnei Moshe uMiriam, Ze Eli anu v'yameru, Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch, le'olam eva'ed. V'ne'emar kifata Adonai et Yaakov, uga'alo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
Page 163 at the top. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom, please join, between the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. I want you to think about that moment where you didn't think you could cross over and you did it. Think about that moment, and when you're ready, please rise. We're going to continue with our silent meditation starting 164 through 180. Take a few minutes just to have your own private prayers and reflections. Our prayer for peace, Oshet Shalom, page 180.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael.
We're going to continue with our healing blessing on 371. It's at this point in the service, 371, that we turn our attention to either those among us, including ourselves, or those in our extended family that we're thinking about. So many in that larger group we have our hearts heavy for, and that we're praying that they will continue to heal. And we hope that our prayers tonight go out towards them. We are thinking about, as a community, Helen Ablove, Judy Bardak, Stephen Bernstein, William Wade Boker, Ebony Burse, Esteban Cabarro, Vito Cavallari, Lynn Klinkhammer, Dolores Denzel, Patrick Fitzgerald, Sue Frank, Irene Green, Jill Hamilton. You're almost back. Yeah. Leon and Cecilia Henderson, Nancy Hersbrunn, Paula Jones, Tracy Kasman, Brian Kern, Mark Nightinger, Manny Quichin, Mary Korchowski, Peter Mackler, Helene Mesh, Chip Monahan, Jill Shire Monahan, Michael Muiz, Colleen Newman, Patricia Newton, Ann Oppenheim, Brandon Ryan, Cheryl Rossi, David Shevat, Christopher Smith, Gary Spiesman, Paul Staley, Margaret Stevenson, Lynn Ullman, Jean Taransky, Darwin Varone, Jennifer Warrington, Anita Wiesel, Jeanette Wood, Chaya Chava, Hannah Ezra Ben Shual, Sarah Gittel Ben Chaya Vadina, and Ellie Ben Moshe. If there's other names, just raise your hand.
Mike Targon, Alex Bolson.
Oh, boy. Definite prayers.
Marcia Rosenthal. Christine and Francie and Carol and Rob. Carmen Hedges. Joy O'Hare. Chris Brooke. Lenny Park. Bill Scranton and Lori Nicole.
We'll collect all those names into our hearts, page 371.
Misheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Li'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
A complete healing of body and soul. At this point, we can close our prayer books and you can put them to the side. The two people that we'll be speaking really need no introduction. They have been hard at work on Congregation Shir Shalom for 12 years, the 2 years prior to the actual merger, as you'll see, and the merger itself. And they were our two first presidents, Todd Sugarman and Jill Hamilton. I don't actually believe they knew each other prior to the merger. So that's part of why you bring people together. Okay, sorry, I didn't
All
mean,
night, right?
I didn't look at their
Paper.
notes.
No, it's not.
All right, so I'm going to come over. Harvey, why don't we both come to the front?
Okay, I want to start first. I think what we're going to do is I'll have an opening statement, and then Jill will have an opening statement. We could be here all night. We don't want to be here all night. We're going to go through a timeline, and you'll see how quickly this thing proceeded to become a merger. So I just want to tell you a little bit how I thought about this merger. I was president of Temple Beth Am for 2 years before we merged. And when I took over at that time, we were dwindling. I think we only had a couple $100,000 in our endowment. So at that time, we were thinking about how we were going to survive, basically. All right, and we're thinking about, where we're going to save money, fundraisers and things like that. Then all of a sudden, one day, I was reading the Buffalo News or the Jewish Review. I don't know exactly what it was, but I came across this article about this temple that was in Buffalo, and it was a small temple. It was same situation as us. It was dwindling. However, they had an endowment that was able to keep it going, and it showed Temple Sinai. It showed the gardens. I remember that article. So I thought to myself, wow, maybe that's the thing. Maybe we should merge. So I think it was either, and I don't remember this, I think it was either an exec board meeting or a board meeting that I brought up the idea. And I've brought up a lot of ideas before, and a lot of people shot them down. But in this particular instance, somebody thought, well, that's a good idea. And then Mike Millman came to me after this meeting, and he said, something? I know Jill Hamilton, president of Sinai. Maybe we can get together. And that's exactly what happened. I think a week later, we got together. We went to Spot Coffee. We sat down. We talked. And it was like we knew each other forever. I remember the conversation was so fluid. And she was excited, actually, about it. Obviously, some concerns, but after we talked about it, we realized this might work, that maybe we should start talking. So I'm going to stop right there, and then Jill can talk.
And I'm going to give a little more background about Temple Sinai. So in 2010, I became president of Temple Sinai, which for this community was a small congregation. In the Reconstructionist movement, it was probably more medium-sized. In any case, we were a smallish Reconstructionist congregation in the older part of Amherst, and I had held various positions on the board and in Temple, including president of the men's and women's group. And Temple Sinai was a warm, family-like atmosphere run mostly by volunteers, with the support of Rabbi Alex, Renee Gattosi as office manager, and Karen Hauser as part-time receptionist, and we had a part-time maintenance man. It was a place where almost everyone pitched in and volunteered whenever there was a need. It was a place where there were a lot of multi-generational activities. Our Purim Spiel had cast members ranging from age 4 to age 80. Our junior youth group, which self-named themselves the Oys, had kids ranging from ages 7 to 12, as well as that one 4-year-old that also was in the Purim Spiel. And one of my dearest friends was Esther Bates of blessed memory, who would have been probably about 75 when I met her. It was a place where the onigs often included homemade treats, and my daughter felt comfortable looking in the freezer to help herself to a cookie while I was taking care of temple business. During the few years before I became president, Adrian Crandall was president, and we had noticed a trend that concerned us. Our congregation was shrinking and aging faster than the studies showed that the national or local Jewish communities were shrinking and aging. We did a self-study of our demographics and found, among other things, we had twice as many members over 85 as under 35. We were financially healthy thanks to the endowment that was created in the 1980s, but we found ourselves using more and more of the endowment each year to meet our budget. We also had a shrinking religious school with a total of less than 20 children from our congregation. Young families would visit us, but they rarely joined because they wanted their children to be in an environment where they could have friendships with other Jewish children. So prior to my presidency, Adrian had started a strategic planning committee, and the committee came up with a few different ideas to try and help bolster our community and make it more viable. Some worked out, some didn't.
To save on heating and cooling our older building, we only had the building open certain days and times, and we only heated or cooled the parts of the building that really needed it. I can remember days when I'd show up at Temple and our office staff were all wearing like heavy turtlenecks and fleece and stuff. The strategic planning committee looked into renting out the building for different functions, like yoga classes or community events, but because we were using the building so frugally to start with, if we opened the building to another group, it meant that we had to pay a maintenance man, turn the heat on and all this stuff, and so it made the cost of the rental so high that no one was really interested in that. And we had a long list of possible things to try, and one of the things on the list was merge with another congregation, possibly, but the opportunity had never really presented itself. And then, as Todd was describing, not too long after I became president, I got a mysterious phone call from our family friend, Mike Millman, who was on the board at Beth Am, and he wanted to meet him for me to meet him and Todd at the Spot Coffee on Main Street and tell no one. They didn't want word to get out to the congregations until we figured out if we were actually doing anything. Todd suggested several options. He talked about possibly sharing resources, like sharing maintenance or things like that, but we were already operating so frugally that it would have actually cost us more to like split services than to use the minimal services we were already using. So then we talked about like possibly merging, and that was something that our strategic planning committee had considered before. So I took it back to our little executive board and we reconvened the strategic planning committee, which hadn't met in quite a while because they'd kind of run out of steam. And the committee came up with a list of deal breakers, things that were so important to us that we couldn't have a merger unless they occurred. So things like that we had to retain our affiliation with the Reconstructionist movement. It was important to us, since we were the smaller temple by quite a bit, it was important that we have equal representation on the initial board. And we wanted also for both groups to be able to at least be open with our boards about what was going on and seek input. So that's where I'm going to start, and it's Todd's turn.
All right, so after we had met, after we had met, we started to, and let me tell you something, the timeline, very helpful. Barry Radlin gave me a great timeline. He kept everything. And so I was able to work off of this, his material. So we must have had a couple of meetings with our groups before March 24th. This must have happened in February or January of 2011, because and I'll tell you, the first meeting that we had, and I want to show you the first meeting that we had. And what happened was I had gotten a few people together who are on our board, and I think Jill has gotten some people together as well. And we were talking, okay? And then we said, okay, I have my people, she has her people, let's have a conversation. That's what we had. So that first meeting, I don't know if Rabbi, if you put this together or not?
It was the two rabbis.
Two rabbis? Right, so this is pretty interesting, and I'll just lay it out, I'll let you see it. But it tells you the difference between Reform and Reconstruction, so it's pretty nice. And the rabbis put that together, and we all discussed it. So it was well organized when we first started. Okay, I think we got off to a great start. I think that's the reason why this worked out. So as that happened, and thanks again to Barry, because on March 24th, I sent out my first letter to the congregation. And basically, all that said was that we are currently engaged in preliminary discussion about a possible partnership or perhaps merger of the two temples. And that was March 24th, 2011. What happened was, after that date, things started, we started talking more and more. And it started getting hot and heavy by May of that year. We started talking with the finance committee, started meeting. We started breaking up in different committees, like the worship committee, finance, and so on and so forth. And we kept on saying, as a group, we're going to do this slowly. Remember that, Jill?
We said there's no emergency, neither.
Go ahead.
Whoops. Sorry, yeah. we said there's no emergency, neither congregation is in dire straits. We're gonna take our time, we're gonna really work through all the issues that we can think of ahead of time.
And so we took our time, but of course we didn't, because by January of 2012, we finally agreed, and I remember sitting there, and we had come to like a stalemate. Like we had done so much, and I don't know if you remember that, Maria. All of a sudden, I think it was Mike Millman who said, "You know what? Why can't we get this done by July, our next fiscal year?" And that's exactly what we started to do. Then we started picking it up, and by January, we finally agreed that we could hopefully start. And by March 20th, we had set up a bylaws. And I'm going to go faster. I'm going to go through this quicker. We had set up bylaws, consolidation agreement, and on that date, I sent out a letter. And on that date, and I'll read a little bit of that. So it says, after a year of deliberation by a joint steering committee, I am pleased to report that the Board of Trustees of both Temple Beth Am and Temple Sinai have unanimously approved both the proposed set of bylaws and consolidation agreement to be voted on by both congregations. Okay, and I proceeded to describe all that. And then what happened was I also, in that same letter, I said that we're going to have a congregational meeting on March 29th and to ask questions and things like that. And I think Jill did the same thing. I think, right. Right.
And I just want to say too, because that letter was March 24th, you said? 20th. 20th. In February, we were working on the actual agreement, and our boards were voting on it. And on my 50th birthday, I got an emergency phone call that there were some issues between the Temple Sinai version of the agreement that we voted on and the Temple Beth Am, and that we had to set up another meeting right away. So my birthday is at the end of February. I spent my 50th birthday on the phone trying to figure out what we were doing.
That was about the endowment committee. That was about, because we had people, I know exactly.
Right, they wrote something, when our board voted on it, there was something they wanted changed, and so we wound up voting on a different agreement than what Temple Beth Am had voted on in their board. There were lots of like little bumps along the way like that. I always said that the worship committee was the committee that worked the hardest and had the least immediate results, because there was so much that you couldn't really decide until you actually tried it. Like as far as which prayer book to use, what our policies were going to be. We all agreed, the one thing we all agreed on was we were going to have kosher style food. And then when we finally got together, we found out we had two completely different definitions of what that was. And we had to work on that some more once we were merged. So when it was time to take the vote to the congregations, before those votes, we held focus groups and town hall meetings at both synagogues. At Temple Sinai, I ran 9 focus groups over 3 consecutive Sundays. Everyone in the congregation received an invitation, and most people did attend one of the focus groups, where people could express their concerns and get their questions answered, and people had suggestions, some of which we added to what we were working on or considering. And at Temple Beth Am, because it was so much bigger, Todd visited different interest groups and did his focus groups that way, like men's group and parent council, and answered questions. And then we also had town hall meetings at both temples that were just a big open meeting with members of the steering committee from both temples there to answer questions. And the vote, when it happened, had to pass by a 2/3 majority. And I think Todd has actual numbers, so we'll get to that in a second.
So, right, so I'll pick up from there. So we had we said that on April 17th. So a letter went out stating that on April 17th, that we were going to vote on the name of the temples. And I guess between that time, we must have came up with 5 names and dwindled them down. And let me tell you something, that was probably the biggest controversy of this whole thing. There was people calling me, we should have Sinai Beth Am. It was crazy stuff. That was the hardest part about this. So we ended up having the vote on April 17th, and this place was packed. I've never seen so many people in this place. And we did go through the naming. I think we voted, went through and dwindled it down. Sherry Jo was sitting next to me at that time, taking the vote counts, and I'm going to show you the original. This is the original tally sheet, okay, and it shows that Shir Shalom was at 99 votes, okay. Kolamai, was that it? Was second? Kolami with 69, okay, so that's the original sheet. And,
I'll list that on our Facebook.
okay.
I have it.
And I'll tell you a story about this. So I'm sitting up there, and actually that day was very emotional for me at that time. And I know Sherry Jo can remember this too, is that I sat there and the numbers were coming in and people were talking all about it. And I turned to her and I said, did I do the right thing here? And I remember saying that. Sherry Jo, I'm sure, can remember that too. And Sherry Jo turned to me and said, yeah, you did. So that was very emotional to me because I knew that this change, that I pushed this change, I pushed, and I didn't know if it was the right thing to do, but she obviously told me it was the right thing. But I felt it at that moment. That was probably the most emotional I ever got when that vote came in. And I could tell that we're not going to be Temple Beth Am anymore, so that was very emotional to me. And then the following week, we did have the proxy. We did have votes now for the merger, okay? And that proceeded to pass, and probably at your temple too, you want to talk about that? So I think we did it almost the same time, right?
Yeah, we planned
Yeah.
on it for the same day, I think,
Yeah.
the next day.
So here's a proxy ballot right here. I'll just leave everything out for you, okay? Once that happened, it became the Barry and Sherry Jo show. And basically, Barry worked his butt off, Sherry Jo worked her butt off. I mean, if you want to talk about it, you're more than happy to come up here and talk about what happened. You can sit, come on up, yeah. And Barry will explain to you all the things that he had to go through because we had to get it passed through the courts, okay? And he'll explain it to you. And actually, this happened in April, so we had to get this done in July, so he'll tell you how, by July 1st. So they were working hard, both of them. They were working very hard. Very Radlin.
Hello, I'm Barry Radlin. I'm the Temple Council. I have been for quite some time. At that point, the legalities took over because New York manages and controls things like the dissolution of religious organizations, mergers, how boards operate, making sure that power is not vested in just a handful of people, so that something like a consolidation, which is the legal word for what happened, can't be done by just a handful of people. So there are a number of steps. So there's a single statute in something called the Religious Corporations Law. It's a section 208, so you can now look it up when you go home. And it's the consolidation of religious organizations. And it gives very specific guidance on how this kind of thing is done. You can talk all day long at Sinai and Beth Am on how much you want to do it, and you can have agreements, and you can have coffee at Spot, and none of it means anything unless you follow the rules. At the time, I had a position with the federal court, and I was unable to be openly practicing on paper. So fortunately, we had an able partner for us, Sherry Jo Reich and her firm, to help out. And there was a great deal of drafting. She and I did, I don't know how many emails there were, but double and triple sheets of edits. And I'll just outline briefly what the steps are. The law requires for consolidation, those that want to merge must petition the court. And it must be a petition to a New York State Supreme Court judge. So both congregations had to separately present its wishes and a proposed consolidation agreement. So step one was drafting a consolidation agreement, which committees did with my and Sherry Jo's editing. and a set of bylaws. And there was a bylaw committee, and that was a treat. And, but let's just take the consolidation agreement. It had many pages, many provisions, and it really doesn't matter what they said. It was an agreement. And then that agreement and the bylaws had to be presented, as Jill and Todd mentioned, to the congregation separately, so that there's evidence to the court that the congregations approve this. Not just 3 or 4 people, not just a board, but the entire congregation by way of a 2/3 vote. So there were those votes. First the name on April 17th of 12, then on April 24th, the congregations separately and I think simultaneously approved the consolidation agreement. Then each congregation had a petition to the Supreme Court. Sherry Joe and I put that together. There was a separate petition from Beth Am saying we had our congregational meeting and it's approved. A separate petition with a caption, just like a fancy lawsuit, from Temple Sinai saying the same thing on so-and-so date. A congregational meeting was held and the agreement was approved. Then there were affidavits, sworn statements by the officers that that meeting took place. And that whole package was consolidated into something that through Sherry Joe's firm was presented to Judge Shirley Troutman in downtown Buffalo. Now remember, and I'm just about done, there came a point where it really seemed like a good idea to have a target date for this to happen. And that was to be July 1st, the beginning of fiscal years. And that means if you back up, things had to get done. So the kind of thing that Jill faced on a given night about a problem wasn't something you could put off for 10 days because the target date, which had to give the judge time to absorb the papers and approve them, everything backed up to a date by which this whole package had to be presented. And that's what we did sometime in late April or May. Sworn statements with Jill signing one, Todd signing it for Beth Am, package stapled together. Sherry Joe walked it over, and yeah, thank you. And the court does a deep dive onto the legitimacy of this process. You never know when something tricky can be discovered, so there's a real challenge on whether the truth is being told. And the court and the judge look to the content of the meeting, the content of the consolidation agreement. There are many lawsuits that we found where there's a claim of a discrepancy in the process and it throws everything off. So we were very careful to cross our T's and dot our I's. And the judge took this group of papers in parallel from the two congregations, a proposed consolidation agreement, and on June 12th, 2012, I'm in the home stretch here, sliding into home plate. On June 12th of 2012, the judge said in a 2-page document, signed, on June 11th, and then stamped by the clerk on June 12th, I hereby approve this consolidation. And the critical words on the 2nd page were ordered that the consolidation of Temple Beth Am and Temple Sinai will be effective as of July 1, 2012. And a powerful statement that we busted our tails to accomplish, got it done for that date, and hence we are on that fiscal year cycle now. And this is the very document. If, among others, somebody wants to look at it, you can, and it could be that it'll be handy at the celebration in July. And so that's the legal route that this took.
Just want to show you too, on May 25th, so I forgot to tell you that, Eric Zappia created the... Oh, sorry, so on about May 25th or so, Eric Zappia created our logo. And then we had discussed that as well.
Okay, any questions on the legal process? I don't think so. I'm going to go back to my seat. But so it was a heck of an accomplishment, I must say. we felt catharsized by getting this done. And of course, Sherry Jo has always had my gratitude for what she provided on being the visible attorney for this process. And that's why you're all here. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. And then the big day came, July 1st, 2012, start of our fiscal year. So we held a brief ceremony at Temple Sinai, and tears were shed. That was the one time when I got emotional. And then we walked the Torahs the 3 miles along Millersport Highway and Sheridan Drive to our new home. And we sang and danced when we arrived, and there were refreshments and congregation Shir Shalom t-shirts. I'm not going to put it on because apparently the shape of my body has changed. Either that or it was one of my kids' shirts, but this is the shirt.
One last, I think I can end with this. Here's our first newsletter, and thanks to Barry, we have it. So this is our basically high notes, and on it was a letter from myself and Jill. And I just want to read my last lines. It's 10 years later, and I didn't realize, but it makes sense to say. So I wrote in this letter at the end, I wrote, "My family is proud to have been a member of Temple Beth Am for the past 20 years. I know that some of you still have concerns about this historic consolidation. However, I am here to say to you that with your help, we can make this work. Then I can say one day that my family was proud to be a member of Congregation Shir Shalom." So I think that was profound. I think we've come a long way, and thanks to all of you, it's all worked. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? If you do, we'll be around.
Yeah, what a wonderful presentation. Don't go back to your seats quite yet. It's really wonderful to kind of hear, and also now it's archived, so it'll be on record. It's so important that we have those kind of documents. Maybe we'll put them in our Buffalo Jewish archives as well. We're going to invite Jill and Todd over here to the Torah stand, as well as Harvey Horowitz. We have a very special week. We didn't plan it this week, but this week is Parshat Naso. That is the portion that we read directly the priestly blessing. And I would encourage you after the service to come and just take a look in it. It's a poetic part of the Torah, so you can really see it. And I think this is a wonderful way to honor both Jill and Todd for their work. But I think we have a lot of people in our extended family here that were part of it. So stand up if you were part of that original merger discussions. Okay, Adrian, you were there. Come on, okay. Stand up if you have served on the board at any time here at Congregation Shir Shalom. Stand up if you were here present, on July 1st or in that first year of a congregation. Stand up if you've ever been on a committee here at Shir Shalom. If you've ever worked at Shavetta's. Or bingo. Okay, wonderful.
Everybody.
Who've gone to a study session here at Shir Shalom. Who've attended services. We'll get everyone here. Okay, Yamdu, Kol Akila, Yamdu. Our first presidents, Jill and Todd, Hamilton and Sugarman, Lalia, Harishona. So Jill, you're going to get the honor because I know you could do the Reconstructionist one there. Since your daughter always said to do it loud, just nice into that microphone.
May I borrow?
And we're lucky to have Todd here. Todd has the yad of, you can sit down if you want. Todd has the yad of our B'nai Mitzvah, adult B'nai Mitzvah class. 2 of them, Ruth and Renee, are over there. We thank them. It's inscribed with adult B'nai Mitzvah class of 2022.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirvanu lavodato ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yivarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yasher Koach. We're going to invite Jill and Todd back to their seats. We'll have the documents ready after service, and we'll invite Harvey Horowitz back to our bima. Carefully, please. There's a lot of wires here. Cantor, she knows about those wires. I don't know. I just worry about them. Okay, we're going to turn now to Aleinu. It's not enough for us just to pray. We need to go out and do good deeds in this world. That is why we came together. That's why what Barry described at Sherry Joe. That's why we worked so hard on that agreement, so that we could make change happen, not only in our own community, but beyond it. Page 586. When you're ready, if you're able to rise.
Aleinu l'shapeach la'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 591.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We'll turn to our mourners Kaddish. I had the great honor of being part of the service for Clayton Adams. He was not Jewish, he's a Presbyterian minister, and his service was over at the chapel at Cross Points. But he single-handedly brought Holocaust education here to Western New York, and I would actually say to New York State. In the 1970s, he was a teacher over at Kenmore, and he decided it was vital that the students there in high school learn Holocaust education. He created the course, he taught teachers, he created our Holocaust Resource Center. So it was a great, great honor. Afterwards, his wife, Pam, said, "What is Kaddish?" It was a request. I said it means to sanctify God's name, which is just a wonderful way to honor. We also did have a recent passing, Mark Gugino. If you know Pam DiBernardo. DiBernardo. I apologize, Pam. This is her brother. There will be a funeral service at 10 a.m. at Mesnikov on Monday morning. We also lost Gloria Werblow, cousin of Toby and Larry Horowitz. I wonder if that's related to the former executive director. Is that
No,
Werblow?
he was Werbo.
Werbo, okay.
Myra's mother was Werblood, and the Werblows were not related to the Werbos or the Werbloods.
So confusing. I thought everyone at Buffalo was related.
They're from out of town.
We're also remembering Andrew Cahill, Lee Cohen, Ida Nevler, and Sherry Sloanham, all who passed in the last month. On our yard-site list from years past, we remember Florence Antonoff, Harry Berman, Molly Bernhardt, Hyman Brody, Alter Shalom Brown, Sylvia Burstein, Suzanne Cohn, Roberta De Bruin, and we'll have a oneg afterwards in honor of Bobby. Joseph Deutsch, Stephen Doan, Bruno Elkin, Trudy Elwood, Jacob Erlin, Arnold Z. Edelson, Gussie Feld, Lance Alden Fertig, Jeffrey Gellin, Janet Glasser, Alan Goldberg, Hyman Green, Robert L. Hirsch, Eugene Kaplan, Claire Larkey, Lois Lemansky, Sidney Letman, Sandra Lynn Lodge, Ida Mackler, Dr. Robert Mincer, Clara L. Newman, Irving Ostroff, Lila Padikoff, Albert A. Pierce, Morris Rakin, Sarah Revo, Harold Rosenthal, Frida Rubenstein, Linda Sellers, William Sloanham, Lillian Cohn Snyder, George Weintraub, Warren D. Zangler, and Maury Zadis. If there's other names you'd like to say, just raise your hand. This is Shloshim in addition for those that were killed in the horrendous attack in Buffalo. It's the 30th day is right here. They'll have a ceremony that will be broadcast on Tuesday, but it will take place tomorrow. And we think about also in Uvalde, the terrible tragedy as well. Those of you whose custom it is to rise, please rise. Yitgadal, v'yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, v'yalma, divra, chirate, v'yamlik malchute, v'chayechon, v'yamachon, v'chayed, v'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala, v'yizman, kariv, v'yamru, amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam olmeo maya. Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Kudusha b'richu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran b'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi Shlam Rabbah min Shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'Ramein. May the one who creates harmony and high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world, and we say Amen. You may be seated. Zikranam Livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. I'd like to invite up the other president. We have the three presidents all represented tonight. Bruce Corris to offer the announcements.
Shabbat Shalom again, everyone. Mazel Tov, and thank you to Jill Hamilton and Todd Sugarman for a really wonderful talk tonight. It was really neat to see the timeline of it all. I mean, God, brought back such memories and just how quickly it all came together. And Jill talked about the kosher style thing. That took longer after the merger to come up with a kosher style policy than the merger took in the first place. It's still going, still debating it. We meet every once in a while over cheeseburgers to talk about it. Anyway, and it's the vote on the name. I mean, this is, I say it all the time, what a wonderful, special place we are. Marina talked about it when she received the President's Award. She, the cool shul. We're, I mean, what's a cool thing that we did, we became a remarkable place. And it's just, only 10 years young. How cool is that? Thank you to Sherry Jo Reich, our service greeter tonight. And thank you to Sherry Jo for all her work, keeping Barry under control during the whole process. How many times did Barry text you and say, do you got a minute? And then that was a 30-minute phone call? Thank you to Sherry Jo and to Barry. Yeoman's work on all of that, and we are so grateful. Of course, thank you to Rabbi Alex, special guest voice Harvey Horowitz, and Paul Staley for a wonderful service tonight in honor of Shabbat. Whether we're here together or you're joining us virtually, we're all together on Shabbat, and it means so much. Tomorrow morning, speaking of virtual, we will have Torah study at 9 a.m., the Shabbat morning service, and virtual Kiddush luncheon. And I always think that the virtual Kiddush luncheon is just virtual food, but it's not. They're eating real food. They're just doing it virtually. That's at 11. Everything is via Zoom. The website has the links. Next Friday night, we're outside. Weather permitting, we are outside under the tent, beginning our summer tradition. And next Friday night will be a special night as we continue our 10th anniversary celebration. Anyone who has had a simcha of any kind at Congregation Shir Shalom, baby naming, wedding. Wait a minute, Sue, you're going to be here, right? You did their wedding. What? That was 2020?
Joella here too.
And Joella just had a conversion. I mean, we've had a lot of simchas right here in this room. Renee and Ruth. Sorry, Ruth, I know you. Renee and Ruth were just the last week. I mean, it's just all these wonderful things that we've had in the last 10 years. So baby naming, conversion, b'nai mitzvah, wedding. If you took part in the marriage reconsecration service over the 10 years, anything's fun. Please join us and we'll all be together and we'll talk about the importance of a temple family and the significance of that. It'll be a wonderful night. That will be next Friday night at 6 o'clock. And of course, it'll be live streamed via Boxcast, Facebook, and YouTube if you can't join us. Tomorrow morning, we'll be here in the parking lot. Shred it, 9:30 to 12:30. Bring your documents. Rabbi Alex has 10 years of sermons to shred. Joanne has 10 years of announcements. We have all sorts of stuff. Todd has all his president's speeches. He's going to bring them. I don't have any president's speeches because they're all ad-libbed. Anyway, that's tomorrow morning. Benefit the temple, 9:30 to 12:30. So it's great. You've got confidential documents. You bring them in. We'll shred them right away for you. You see them, get rid of them. The fee is $10 for a banker's box, $30 for larger containers. It is cash only. If you have any questions, talk to me after the service. Speaking of me, I'll be back here a week from tomorrow for the safe driving class. That will be Saturday, June 18th from 9:30 to 3:30. That's the class that saves you 10% off of your liability, collision, and no-fault insurance for 3 years. Anything that I would have gotten as a fee for teaching the class will be donated to the temple. So the more people who show up, the more the temple gets. Last year, the proceeds helped refurbish the grand piano. So please, quick show of hands, how many people have taken the class from me here at, look at, those of you watching the stream, every hand in the room just came up. Our gift shop's gonna be open some Friday nights. Actually, we're not over the summer, it's just gonna be by appointment only. We'll take that out. If you need anything at the gift shop, talk to Joanne. We wanna thank everyone who volunteered or purchased a Shabbat dinner this past Tuesday. Special thank you to Julia Cohan, guest traffic coordinator on a really cruddy day.
Yeah, it really was.
Someone picked a great day to not be there, let me tell you. Thank you. Anyhow, Shabbatas are so important to us and we appreciate your support. We'll be back Tuesday, June 21st, and Julia, I will be in the parking lot that day, so it'll be a beautiful sunny day. You saw out in the lobby, we're still collecting non-perishable foods for the folks on the east side. I did see some diapers and stuff in there. I'm sure that if you donate stuff for babies and things like that, it'll go to good use. And then we're going to bring back the drive for the people of Ukraine as well, so look for an email on that. We mentioned earlier that we're having the big celebration on Saturday, it's a special weekend. The July 1st is the anniversary. The rabbi's got a brilliant sermon prepared for that night. And then Friday, July 8th, we'll have a special Erev Shabbat service outside under the tent. Noah Boudin is back. We know what a wonderful evening that is when Noah joins us. So he'll be here for that. And then on Saturday, July 9th, we are going to have a 10th anniversary party to end all 10th anniversary parties. That will begin at 7 o'clock p.m. We're going to have dinner. We're going to have drinks. We're going to have dancing. We're going to have a DJ. It all begins at 7 o'clock, and it is free. We do need reservations. Make sure we have a good head count, because Todd's doing all the cooking. So we need to make sure we have enough food. We need a head count for that. So please, what's the deadline, Joanne? No, July 1st is the deadline for RSVP? Wow, that's coming up. Okay, Friday, July 1st is your deadline for RSVPing for that. And we're going to take a big drone picture. We're going to have a drone up to take a big picture of everyone. That's right, is that right at 7?
Joanne arranged.
Or is that Friday? The drone is Friday?
Yeah, of the 8th.
Both nights.
Of the week.
We're gonna have, it's double droning. We're gonna have a drone Friday night and a drone Saturday night. So if you're here for the service, if you're here for the party, if you're here for both, we'll merge it all together. And it will be like one of those blurry pictures because everyone's gonna be double vision. It'll be great. By the way, you noticed I took my mask off to talk at the microphone. Others have done that. We are still, as of now, masked in the building, but next week we're going outside. And of course, masks are optional out there. We do want to keep monitoring the situation, and we always put your safety first, as we have since that phone call that Rabbi and I had at 8 o'clock in the morning. March 14th. But anyway, as you know, we always put your safety first, and we always will. If you need anything at all, please be, Julia's got something. And with everything I've said, there's something else? Oh, that's right. And the tickets are $10 each. Three for.
You can make a mitzvah donation, 3 tickets for $25.
Excellent.
Three
And that quilt
tickets,
would do-
25.
That quilt would be worth $1,000 if they sold it on the street. So, well, not on the street. You don't sell quilts on the street.
And it's soft.
But that's a very valuable quilt that Judy made, so we appreciate that. If you need anything at all from any of us, please feel free. Todd is here. I'm here. Joanne is here. The rabbi's here. The cantor's not here tonight. But call her anyway. She doesn't mind. And please help yourself to an Onig to Go. Tonight's Onig to Go is sponsored by Terry DeBrun in honor of the. Hi Terry, it's nice to have you with us. It's in honor of the yahrzeit of her mom, Bobby DeBrun, who I still remember Bobby saying to me right after the merger, "You were the first friend I made at this temple, at the new temple." And she was a wonderful woman, and we still think of her. So anyway, have a cookie, have a piece of fruit, have some candy. Thank you to Terry for doing that. Stop in sometime. We hope to see you in person. And Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for being part of this incredible Shir Shalom family. Quick show of hands. How many people are charter members of Congregation Shir Shalom? Think about it. Yeah, we are all charter members of this temple. How many people can say they're charter members of a temple? We can say it, and it's a very special place. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Amen. Yeah, Terry has been joining us every Friday night from Chicago, and we're so she always writes some wonderful things into our Facebook feed, and it's one of the great things about being able to have virtual that Terry's able to be there for all her parents and to really be part of our community. There was a couple of announcements I think that we didn't have. First Thursday is Buffalo Corner Reading Series. We have our poetry. I don't remember who's on the docket, but is it also live or is it all? So it'll be a hybrid. Some of us will be here and some of us on Zoom screens at 7 o'clock. I've been invited to be part of a national program. It's on 2 o'clock on Thursday. We'll send out the Zoom information. It's Reverend Mark Blue from the NAACP and myself. We're going to talk about Black-Jewish relations, especially in light of what happened in Buffalo a month ago. So it should be very meaningful. We'll send it out. I'm sure there'll be a link, a recording as well, so if you're not able to make it in time. But it has been a pleasure to have Harvey. He's one of the great gifts of our congregation, and it's wonderful always to lead with him. We're moving to 625, Adon Olam, and Harvey and Paul picked out all the melodies, so whatever they choose.
Adon Olam,
Adon Olam,
Asher Malach,
Asher Malach,
B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Li'et Nasa, V'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora Adon Olam, V'hu Haya, V'hu Hoveh, והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם, אדון עולם,
Adon Olam.
אשר מלך,
Asher Malach.
בטרם כל,
B'terem kol.
יציר נברא, לעת נשא,
לעת נשא.
וחפצו כל,
אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם.
והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו להכבירה אדון עולם, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמזרע אדון עולם, אדון עולם,
Adon Olam.
אשר מלך
Asher Malach.
בטרם כל,
B'terem kol.
יציר נברא, לעת נשא, וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעת צרה אדון עולם, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא אדון עולם, אדון עולם,
Adon Olam.
אשר מלך
Asher Malach.
בטרם כל,
B'terem kol.
יציר נברא, לעת נשא,
Leit Nasa.
וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, בידו אפקיד רוחי, בעת תשען ואירא אדון עולם, ואם רוחי גוויעתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא אדון עולם, אדון עולם,
Adon Olam.
אשר מלך
Asher Malach.
בטרם כל,
B'terem kol.
יציר נברא, לעת נשא,
Leit Nasa.
וחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם.
I'm going to invite Harvey down to our challah table. The least we can do is offer you a full challah. And Harvey is very wise using the banister. Looks a little shaky. I think we need a banister there. Yeah, watch the wires. Okay, here we go. As he lifts up our challah, we'll say the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. As you came in peace, may you leave in peace. Please return your prayer books minus the leaflet to the front of the sanctuary, and Shabbat Shalom.